right, folks. Welcome to the very first episode of a Skirmish Supremacy extra series called Raising the WitchBorn. And I am going to be doing this segment along with the creator of the game, Corey. Corey, say hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Corey is actually the creator of the WitchBorn. And for those of you that have listened to some of our past episodes on Skirmish Supremacy, you will know that we had him on here while he was doing his Kickstarter for the WitchBorn Enter Perdition. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the WitchBorn, Corey, where exactly can they find all of the information at? I know you have Twitter, you have Facebook, you've got the website.
Yep. Best place to start is witchborn.com, but you can also look on Facebook under the WitchBorn. We do like daily updates on strategy and tips and that kind of stuff. We're on Twitter at WitchBorn, and the YouTube channel is kind of fledgling, but youtube.com, the WitchBorn.
Excellent. So normally, folks, I would have this all set up through Google Hangouts to have it to where I didn't have to edit this, but it looks like I'm going to have to do some editing in the post video. So we're just going to roll with it. So this is episode 1 of Raising the WitchBorn. And again, the WitchBorn is very much a miniatures RPG hybrid. It's probably one of the most complete ones that I've seen out there. You know, there's a lot that start as like more miniatures that have RPG elements, RPGs that are heavy that just have some miniature elements. This one, it seems to be the perfect blend. And just like most miniatures games, this could actually use some extra talk on strategy, which is where this whole series comes in. So today, Corey and I are going to be going over the basics of how to build any Witchborn army that you start with. So for this video, it does not matter what the faction is. We're going to go over the basics that you should know when you are building a Witchborn faction from level 0 survivors. So Corey, as far as this goes, where is usually the best area to start?
The big thing that you've got to remember is you don't have a lot of gold to start with. You got 125 gold, and you can't spend more than 90 gold on your actual warriors. The other 35 plus will be for equipping them. So you're going to start off kind of destitute, and that's by design. The world has been ravaged by Witchborn, and if you came in as these overpowered heroes that everybody loves to play, there's not that fun of building them up.
Right. So kind of touching back on that, the world of the Witchborn is very much a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting. So you're going to have dwarves, elves, humans, the Norns, which are very much like J.R.R. Tolkien, Norse, orcs, and things of that nature. So unlike your typical D&D setting where you start off being able to handle yourself, you still can. Think of it more as along the lines of like, I don't have a bunch of money to buy full plate armor and swords and all this. You might only have a leather breastplate and a dagger.
and that's it to start.
Right.
Everybody's got to start with 8 warriors in their war clan, so it's a little different than a D&D type game where you're just playing one. You're playing almost like the adventuring party. You're a small group that's kind of banded together for safety and protection. And the 8 is real important because you only have 90 gold to spend on those 8 guys.
Right.
And so when you look at, we'll take the dwarves for example. Hopefully this will show up on camera. You've got basic list of the warrior types that you can draw from and gold piece value for each. And
right.
As you would imagine, the more powerful the starting warrior is, the more he costs. So it gets really tricky when you're trying to decide how to spend that 90 gold.
Right. And you were required to have a leader. So like in the case of the dwarves, the Jarl, you are required to have a Jarl in your war clan.
Right. Every war clan has their own leader, and then it's kind of your decision on where to go. And I've seen every kind of build for every kind of war clan possible. And there's always somebody trying to cheat the system. And I think we've been playing this long enough that we've figured out most of the cheats. You are allowed to start with more than 8 guys, but it doesn't work out for the people who do, because you tend to end up getting the less valuable guys who have worse skills, worse ability scores. And when you go for the 8 best, which is what I always recommend, the 8 best available, you usually can't afford to buy them all. So you're going to suffer in some way, shape, or form.
Right. So on the flip side of that, you're only allowed to spend 90 gold on 8 warriors that you have to purchase at least 8. Now you can spend less on those 8, correct?
Yeah, you can. You can. And that's another trick that people have tried. They buy the leader, and then they buy the 7 cheapest guys just to see if better armor and better weapons pays off early on. And to my experience, it really doesn't.
Yeah, and I would say that'd be the same with mine as well.
Yeah. The trick being is, in some games, when you play an adventure, you walk away with tons of money and you can buy everything in the rule book after that one adventure. This one, it's kind of parsed out. You get a lot more for winning than you do for losing. But you're going to slowly add guys to your war clan, add equipment to your war clan. So you're really accomplishing something. But the point being is this 90 gold that you're getting, it's probably the most gold you're ever going to have in your playing career. So you want to be really thoughtful about how you spend it, initially.
Right, which makes perfect sense. So with that said, obviously you have to buy the leader. You want to buy the 8 best possible combination of models to total 8 best combination of models, and you probably want to use as much of that 90 on your troops as possible.
Yeah, I've got it worked out so that usually 88 to 90 will give you a really nice optimal build. And then you can always experiment. There's people who are always tweaking, If I'm playing the guild and I go with 2 companions, which are only 4 gold pieces because they're pretty squishy and pretty weak. But maybe that'll let me get an Oni who is, kind of like a demon, And so I'm going to sacrifice a little bit here to get something way tougher there.
Right, which makes sense, because it's a bit of a give and take. Now, as far as selecting the troops, nobody comes with starting equipment. So that 90 gold you spend, you are literally spending that on, for lack of better terms, naked warriors.
Yes, their bodies.
Yes, for their stats and skills.
Yep. And some people I've got people who've experimented with not equipping the guys right away, and just seeing what happens there. Obviously, you can't do a lot except avoid. So
you can run screaming a lot.
So I always say, just be smart about how you spend your 35 gold.
Right.
The 35 gold is really essential, and I see people make the same mistakes over and over and over again. I've written little strategy articles on it. You would think that I've got 8 guys and breastplates only cost 2 gold a piece. 16 of my 35 gold, everybody's got a breastplate, right? Well, the math really doesn't work out well. Without getting into a long, complicated math lesson, when you're in combat, a breastplate's going to give your guy somewhere between a 6 to 7 defense score. You really want to be at 8 or better to survive most attacks that you're going to face. So putting a breastplate on everybody is almost like not having anything. So what I always recommend is go for a little bit better armor. Get the leather armor or the chainmail or something that's just that one step up, and put it on 3 to 4 guys. Right. The other guys, make them missile guys, make them, kind of support guys, make your melee guys, put them in armor that they're going to be able to survive a sword slash. They're going to be able to survive somebody ramming them with a spear. And because when you go to this game is all about stepping up, right? If I buy the breastplate after the first game, I'm going to win maybe 10 gold. I'm going to buy the leather armor. Now I can pass the breastplate to a guy who doesn't have armor on. I can constantly kind of step up to better and better stuff, and I can quickly equip my whole war clan, but they may be without armor for the first couple games.
Right, which makes sense because normally, at least from what I've seen, I know my initial build when I played the Wolven at Adepticon, I did have very similar build on a lot of my wolves. My leader, on the other hand, because of the fact that he was very face punchy, I did up his game a lot when it came time to his armor and his weaponry. I actually believe that out of the 35, I spent 22 of the gold just on his gear.
And that's what we do. It's a tough balance, right? Because in the WitchBorn we say don't make a superhero, because if you got one guy who's unbelievably tough and the 7 are terrible, what happens if the hero dies and becomes WitchBorn? Right. He might turn on your 7 guys who are unarmored and unequipped, you know? So it's always that balancing act. So I tell people to think in terms of squads as they're building their teams. These are my melee guys. These are my missile guys. These are my guys who are going to become support. Maybe they're healers. Maybe they're cut purses, robbing other war clans. Maybe they're, the openers to get through doors and that kind of stuff. So you need a good mix of everything. But initially, especially Enter Perdition, the first adventure, is more of a search game, and you're going to be going head to head with some other guys. But if you're smart and you've got 1 or 2 decent missile weapons and 1 or 2 decent melee guys, those 4 guys can protect the full 8 war clan until you make it through that adventure and kind of get a chance to restock at the end of the game.
Right. So as far as the build goes, that was the one thing that I tried to focus on as much as I could, was making sure that I breaking it up kind of into threes, for lack of better terms, where I have 3 melee, 3 missile, and then I would have 2 others that were kind of just specialists that maybe were a little bit of an in-between. In certain factions, they have certain models that are really good at the stealth, that are really good at, performing other actions other than pulling a trigger or swinging a sword. So a lot of that does come down to faction, but it's always good to kind of have those go-betweens.
Yeah. The other mistake I see is people want to be homogenous. Every guy, the same guy. Mm-hmm. And so they'll buy 8 short swords because short swords are cheap. They're 1 gold. Well, statistically, a short sword is a pretty worthless weapon. And so you've just bought 8 worthless weapons. They'll hit, but you're going to rely more on luck than anything else to actually hurt somebody. So why not, get the battle axe and the crossbow and the short bow and some of the better weapons right off the bat. And yeah, that's going to starve the other guy, but no one's ever unarmed. Depending on what war clan you are, most have fists or claws or some way to attack if you want to rely on luck. Or
even just a simple club.
Yeah. Even an elf war clan, everybody can carry a cudgel, and it's free. So you start all your elves with cudgels, and then you go, okay, can I afford a longbow? Because that is going to hit from way farther away than any weapon my opponent's going to have. And I can take my 2 longbow shots every turn. Or maybe I go 2 short bows for the price of 1 longbow. Now I've got two shooters, but not as good a damage and not as far of range. So it's a constant kind of balancing act of what can I afford, and do I want multiple attackers? Do I want to focus on 1 or 2?
Right. Now, as far as the advancement goes, obviously everybody can advance at their own pace. You have a chance of increasing stats every time that someone gains enough shadow points to level up. They gain new gear just from you spending gold. They gain new skills. What are some of the things that you recommend for people when they initially start leveling up? And this is, I guess, still falling on the generic. We'll cover this more in our future episodes when we start delving more into the clan specific. But what are some of the things that you really encourage people to do the moment they start leveling up? Like even that first character hits level 1 shadow.
It's hard to do, especially with a fighter or a great missile guy, but you need several guys who can bind wounds in your war clan. And the reason being, in the WitchBorn, the wounds are brutal. I mean, you're going to get arm lopped off, you're going to get your eye poked out, and now your agility score has dropped 2 points. And you want somebody who can quickly heal you after the game. And unless you devote some guys to skills like that, you're going to be walking around a walking, war wound everywhere, and it can get really debilitating really quickly.
Right.
So
for the folks that
people always overlook.
Yeah. So for the folks that are listening to this for the first time, in the WitchBorn, there's no such thing as a hit point. Everything is done through status conditions. So you might be stunned or staggered or knocked down or something like that. When you start taking wounds, it's really, really bad. That means that they have managed to do enough to you to where it is debilitating. It's not just, oh, I lost 5 hit points, I've got 10 left, I'm good.
Let's pull up the app here and let's see if we can see what we get here. So can you see that? Wound?
Yes.
Okay. And it's totally random. Knockout is the mildest. So that's the first one we got there. Your opponent should do some soul searching. Maybe he'll find one. If within reach, the dirty rat steals all your weapons. No route feats are needed. So that one, believe it or not, is a mild one. All you did was lose all your weapons to whoever took you out there. But you're
still removed from the game for the rest of the game.
Yeah, the guy's out for the game, but let's do a really bad one here. A war wound is much less common, but much more severe. Your eyeball pops like a grape and then dangles from a gooey string. Time to get a jaunty patch. Heal this now or lose vision in one eye, permanently reducing your agility -2. Now, most average agility is 3. So you're down to 1/3 of what is average. So you want that guy who can bind wounds to take care of that right away.
So that would definitely fall into something that with the specialists, where even if you can't do it for the entire army, at least having the specialists start really focusing on support roles compared to I just need to give them swords and send them to the front lines is probably a good thing to do.
And then skills are broken into kind of 6 categories. There's defense-based skills that are going to help you defend yourself better, obviously. Melee skills will help you in melee combat. Maybe it'll increase damage to your weapon. Maybe it'll give you a reroll. Maybe it'll allow you to fight with 2 weapons. So there's ways to branch off that way. Your agility skills will take you down the path of missiles, and you can shoot better, you can shoot into cover, you can do a lot of different things that way. There's psyche skills, which don't come into play as much, but bind wounds is one of those. If you're playing with the optional War Mage diary rules for Magic, that's where a lot of the psyche skills come in. And then speed skills are things that allow you to attack more times per turn, defend yourself with things like parry, attack sooner, win the initiative battle, that kind of stuff. And then there's all war clan based skills. So very unique stuff, like an elf might take a skill like Plant Singer, which allows him to grow herbs that are going to help him during the game.
Right.
A paladin, he might take things like divine grace, which is a blessing from his deity Equinar, who's going to allow him to improve all his roles in the game.
Right, which makes sense. So with that said, though, you mentioned the War Mage Diary. Now, obviously, that is an option. So I think it still warrants something to be said, though, in the basics of the game, to where I have almost felt that if you are using the War Mage Diary and you have access to spellcasters and their abilities, that you should always purchase a leader, and the very next one you should purchase is your spellcaster.
I totally agree. Early on, the mage is so important to the defense and betterment of the war clan. It's unbelievable. It's just those little buffs that they can give your players. They're not going to be doing any big damage skills. That comes as they level up. But early on, they're going to help you a lot. And one of the things that I always tell people, and they never listen to, is when you add that War Mage, be sure to buy them spell components in their first spell out of your 35. It's amazing how many mages step in onto the first game and can't do anything. They're just there. And it's like, what were you thinking? Well, I put armor on him. Well, great, but you need that ability to cast those spells to help your war clan out right away.
Right. And so with that, the components and the actual first level spell only comes to like 2 gold.
Yeah, it's dirt cheap, and it's something you can't. I mean, if I was doing a kind of like the buy warriors list, as Tim said, it's leader, war mage, and then as many expensive guys as I can get, and then fill that in with the 2 or 3 cheap guys that you can get to make my 8. And then first thing I do is spell components for 2 gold, make a spell roll for 1 gold. You can buy a first level spell to start with. And then I usually think in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 gold for armor. And it's just going to be 3 to 4 suits for my best guys. And then I'm usually going to focus on 1 missile weapon. And missiles will cost you anywhere from half a gold piece to 10. And not many people can afford that 10 right away, but there's a lot of short bows and stuff in between there that are 4 gold. Don't overlook throwing hammers for your dwarves. They're 3 gold, but they do a heck of a lot of damage.
Always look for a cheap option if you can.
And then last thing, melee weapon. What can I do? What can I get for free? There's I think 3 or 4 of the war clans have free weapons that aren't great. That's why they're free. So make sure everybody's equipped with that. And then what can I get? What do I got left? I got 6, 9 gold left, 3 battle axes, whatever, get the best weapon I can. Don't waste the money on the 8 short swords, because the 8 short swords are really no better in combat than a fist. So it's a little better, but if the other guy's wearing armor, it's going to cancel out the advantage of the short sword anyway.
Right, which makes perfect sense. The short sword, in a case like we were mentioning, the short sword, it's there as an option where it's like, you know what, I've got the extra 3 gold left. My guys are about as equipped as I can get them. However, this guy over here could use something a little better. Or maybe I buy that short sword because there's a chance that your weapons could break during the game, or in a case like that, you get, there's numerous things that could happen during the game to where you could lose a primary weapon.
And then if you've got 2 or 3 gold left at the very end, be sure and flip through your gear tables at the end. It's usually 2 pages or more. And just kind of, there are some bargains in there. Like I'm looking at the guild right now, and you can get 3 caltrops for 1 gold. What good's a caltrop? Well, what it does is I can throw it out next to me, and it costs somebody else basically half their movement to move through caltrops. And so it kind of sets up a defensive barrier around me. Maybe I'm with my guild master and I'm killing an elf with my katana, and I want to make sure that none of his elf buddies can come help him. I throw out my caltrops at the beginning of my turn and kind of build a barrier between me and the elf that I'm picking on. And there's a lot of little bargains in there if you know what to look for.
Yes.
The only way you know what to look for is you got to take the time to read it.
Right. And so, and again, that will be covered as we start going through the basics of the different clans. But is there anything else you'd like to throw in for the basics? I think we've pretty much covered everything we can on just the generic build.
Yeah, I think for the generic build, what I always tell people before you even get to the roster is just sit with a piece of scratch paper and go through and kind of figure it out. The other thing is if you've got elves or Norn, they both, the warriors you buy get to make rolls at the beginning of the game. Elves start with some innate magic, and you get to find out what that is. And the Norn, you find out their ancestry. They could be a pureblood shapeshifter if you roll well enough or get another little skill added on. And some of those skills that you're going to get for free will impact the choices you make on the kind of equipment and stuff that you get. This guy's a pureblood shapeshifter. He can't wear normal armor. When he changes into this giant werewolf type creature, his armor would burst and break at the seams. So there are things called totem armor, and you have to decide if you can afford to buy the totem armor right away, or if you're going to let him go into battle unarmored for a couple games until you can afford the totem armor.
Just let him freak out and go wolf form and just hope for the best.
Yeah. So there's a lot of little nuances to each war clan on what you're going to want to buy, and we'll get into that in some of the later episodes.
Excellent. Well, I think that's where we're going to wrap up this first episode of Raising the Witchborn. So, folks, this will be coming out every week, so please stay tuned. And next week, I believe we are going to be starting with the dwarves. We will catch you next time.